and welcome to Two Words Wolves Pod. I'm Ryan Eichten. It's another solo episode for me. Sunday morning after Game 4, there's nothing else I was going to do besides come on this microphone and talk about what was, on Saturday night, one of the most memorable nights in the history of Target Center. I think we'll get to that. But this was a night that will stand out for good. You hope more the good more than the bad. You really pray that that's the case. But either way, Saturday night Game 4 at Target Center will stand out as a monumental accomplishment for the Timberwolves. They come into the game, they blow out the Nuggets in Game 3. Obviously, we can rehash everything that happened with the Game 2 comeback, with the Jaden McDaniels of it all, the Game 3 blowout, and they come in and they score the first 5 points of the game. Seems like the Wolves are ready to really put their stamp on this series. And Donte DiVincenzo takes a false step back and tears his Achilles. We didn't technically know that until, I believe, the second half, but watching the replay and even watching it live, everyone knew. You could just see it. These injuries are becoming more commonplace. Damian Lillard, Jason Tatum, Tyrese Haliburton all tear their Achilles last playoffs, and all three look similar to this, especially Haliburton. And you just know. You can see it. You can see the replays. You just know. And that, in many ways, was just absolutely devastating and gutting for the Timberwolves, the franchise, and especially Donte DiVincenzo. It's hard to really put into words everything that will come from this injury. It's a gigantic moment for everything that this player, who had really been playing the best basketball of his life coming into this series, led the Wolves in plus minus through the first 3 games of this series, was seemingly primed to have a similar output again in Game 4. And he suffers the worst possible injury really you can have. And we'll talk about what it means for the Wolves the rest of this playoffs, the rest of the series, but it's hard not to let your mind wander towards next season, where he has a $15 million contract and is a free agent after that. And just for him, unfortunately, this injury will cost him tens of millions of dollars, because he would have been in line for a sizable multi-year contract extension after next season. And while he'll still make his $15 million contract next season, and all likelihood he will get some sort of contract after that, that contract after that will be a 1-year prove-it deal. And so that stinks for Donte DiVincenzo, and for the Wolves, who for most or potentially all of next season won't have one of their most important players in DiVincenzo. And you can even break down the cap ramifications of having the $15 million contract you don't know where you're going to get out of. But all that, I want to save that to the offseason and talk more about the actual game. But obviously, the entire night, the crowd just went silent. At that point, everyone could see what had happened. And it's a bummer. It's just a huge bummer for the game, the series, and obviously the rest of the playoffs and beyond. But for now, we're going to focus on tonight's game, because aside from that injury, a lot happened. And obviously, at the end of the first half, Anthony Edwards gets hurt as well. It's a hyperextension of his left knee, the opposite knee of the runner's knee that he's been dealing with this entire playoffs. You watched the injury, and it looks brutal. Shams Charania this morning, Sunday morning, came out and said that he'll be out multiple weeks. It was really the best possible outcome the Wolves could have hoped for with this injury. No ligament damage in those knee ligaments that are prone to these type of injuries. While Donte's injury, you think about the ramifications of years to come. Luckily with Edwards, at least as of now, it doesn't appear that is a consideration. If the Wolves were to, whenever their season ends, there should be all the confidence that at the start of next season, Anthony Edwards will be 100%. But yeah, zooming into this playoff series, Anthony Edwards will miss multiple weeks. This is a injury recovery that he won't be 100% for months. We will not see 100% Anthony Edwards in these playoffs. We will not see Anthony Edwards at all in the rest of this Denver series. And so without DiVincenzo as well, again, I'll eventually start focusing on the game itself. But luckily, we don't have to. Luckily, the future was not in jeopardy with this injury. But certainly, the rest of these playoffs, if the Wolves did have a chance to win, whatever, who even knows, might have ended altogether with Dante's injury, and certainly makes it incredibly thorny once Anthony Edwards goes down. Shams says multiple weeks. That could be 2 weeks. That could be 10 weeks. We really don't know as of yet. I'm sure the Wolves will put out their own statement once they continue to evaluate him today on Sunday. I think best case scenario, and this is really just speculation, is that if you could win one of these Denver games without him and get to like a game 6 down 3-2, that would probably be best case. That would probably be like 2.5, 3 weeks from now. That would be, I think, best case scenario. Again, I'm speculating on when to get Ant back, but who knows? This could just be, it's a long road until then. And so it's not worth to speculate, because a lot of it's going to determine on how healthy he looks. And they, as the face of the franchise, they can't send him out there and risk further injury. So yeah, all of that happened in the first half. It took the air out of the building, but I thought what was impressive is the Wolves were only down 4 at halftime. They really stuck into the game and were able to keep the game close with everything that was going on. Once the Wolves did get to halftime, I even without their entire backcourt, it just felt like they had a chance. And so we'll set aside the injuries for now. We'll have plenty of time to discuss those, their impact and everything. But let's really dive into the game, because as just a pure sports moment, it's one of the best moments. The rest of this game was one of the best moments in the history of the Timberwolves, in the history of Target Center. And obviously, there's just the definition of bittersweet the entire night. This should have been a game the Nuggets won by a lot of points. The Wolves are missing their entire team. And obviously, should be mentioned, Aaron Gordon leaves this game only playing 23 minutes. Wasn't foul trouble. He only committed 2 of those. So neither team is 100% healthy, but the Wolves are able to climb back into this game. They go down, like 7 points early in the third quarter, and they never gave up. And I think it's clear they rallied around this team, knowing that 2 of their guys were hurt, and they were going to win it for those guys. And they come out with late into the third, into the fourth, they come out with the 21-6 run to go up 13, and they pull it out from there. And it's hard to overstate just how proud of all of us Wolves fans, the people that cover the team, the coaching staff. You can't overstate the gut, the heart that this team showed. I tweeted it out, and I'll just read it out, because this is what I felt. You can question what you want about the Timberwolves, their talent, their roster fit, the coaching, or whatever else, but you cannot question their fucking heart. And I would say I apologize for the language, but I don't, because that's what it was. That was all heart. That was all want to. That is exactly what this Timberwolves basketball team is. And both of these teams showed exactly who they are in this game, because the Nuggets played with absolutely no heart, with no comeback, with no fight, nothing. They were awful in this game. Their best player was awful in this game. Jokic had, and I'll talk about this now, Jokic started more fights in the fourth quarter than he had made shots. That game is such a gigantic indictment of Nikola Jokic. The Wolves have the game won, and yeah, Jaden McDaniels breaks the unwritten rule of laying the ball in. But Jokic showed more fight and more give a shit in that moment running up to Jaden McDaniels than he has the entire series. And so if you want to talk about the unwritten rules, fine. What I'm going to talk about is Jokic, who is flopping the entire game. People talking about poking him, and that's the problem with the efficient. Give me a break. top two Nuggets players flopping this entire game instead of getting in a stance and guarding. That's the problem with nowadays basketball. Give me a break. To start that fight at that moment for Jokic is such an awful look. Look, this is Adelman said it after the game, and he didn't mean it this way, but he said that's who Jaden McDaniels is. He's goddamn right. That is exactly who Jaden McDaniels is. After game 2, calling out the entire Nuggets team for their defense, and what did they do? What did the Wolves and Jaden McDaniels do after that? 68 points in the paint the next game. If Jokic didn't want to get punked, if Jokic thought he got punked at the end of game 4, no, that's not when it happened. You got punked at the end of game 3 and the end of game 2 with what Jaden McDaniels said. The fact that there was no fight shown by that team at the end of that, but the minute that Jaden makes a layup, and the Nuggets are lucky that he didn't go with the Jaden McDaniels slam 5,000 like he did at the end of game 7, bouncing the ball off the floor and dunking it. He let you off easy. He laid it in. Mike had a funny quote after the game where he threw that pass, not realizing it was Jaden down there at the other end, and Mike knew exactly what was coming. He was like, "Oh, maybe Jaden will." Oh, nope. Yeah, he's doing it. Starts a fight. Randall and Jokic get ejected. We'll see if there's suspensions. I hope Aaron Gordon comes off the bench. There's probably other Wolves that came off. It was near their bench, so I'm sure there was Wolves that came off the bench to a lesser degree. I hope there's no suspensions. If there is, Jokic and Gordon deserve suspensions as much as any of the Wolves players. I hope no one on either team gets suspended. That would the injuries have already put a damper on this series on both sides, and obviously you don't just let's play it out. Let's see where the rest of this goes. But yeah, it was an incredibly emotional night inside Target Center. On both, just with the injuries for the Wolves, the way they were able to come back and win the game and go up 3-1, giving themselves a chance to escape if they lose the series and they're tied 2-2 without their entire backcourt, it's hard to imagine them winning multiple games. Now they just got to win one of the next 3. Obviously that'll still be difficult without Ant and Dante for the rest of the series, but if they played like they did tonight, they just got to do it one more time, and you survive, and then you're likely facing an unexperienced San Antonio team. Obviously, again, without Ant for much of that series and Dante for all of it, it's hard to. The path is tough. I think we should all be realistic about what the rest of this playoffs can and will be. But that was an incredibly fun night at Target Center, and I'm probably burying the lead here. Ayo Dosunmu, 43 points, 13 of 17 shooting, hit all 5 of his threes, carried the Wolves to victory, and as much as the future with Dante getting hurt and who knows what that looks like, on the flip side, the future with Ayo Dosunmu in Minnesota is bright. They will have whatever financial needs they need to resign him. You have to imagine he'll be back in a Wolves uniform after that. Again, with the Wolves will have 10 times the financial flexibility as any other team on the market, giving all the rules. So if Dosunmu was likely to be back before the game, whatever the next step beyond likely is, very likely, I guess, Dosunmu, Ayo will be back. Just a career high 43 points. These last 2 games coming off the bench have been the Timberwolves playoff record for bench scoring in the playoffs. Just an incredible game from him. Absolutely attacked everything wrong about this Nuggets team. Just got to the paint, got open looks, nailed everything you'd want from him. Stepped up with the other 2 backcourt mates gone. They're going to need that from him in the absence of Anthony Edwards and Dante, who knows how sustainable it all is. Obviously, a 43-point outing on 13 made shots to 4 missed shots is that's not the bar, but he gave you everything you wanted. And it was just, Finch summed up the season well, and I'll read out the quote here. The players kept telling me it would be different, so when we got to the playoffs, game 1 wasn't any different, so we jumped their ass, meaning the coaching staff jumped the ass of the players. They lied to us. The players lied to the coaching staff. That's about turning up the flitch. And then the Wolves players responded. It's a paraphrase of what Finch said, and that aligns with everything we've seen and what I've talked about in this podcast and my writing. The Wolves just didn't, for better or worse, I would argue worse, they just didn't care about the regular season. They just didn't. We can in the offseason, we can break down how much that hurt them in this series and whatever. We can talk about that. But I think all of us also knew that they had the last three games in them. And it took them the entire regular season and a really awful outing in game 1 and the first quarter of game 2 to really realize what they needed to do. And these last 3 games, even despite the injuries, despite everything, this is the team we knew that they had the ceiling, that they can really, really beat anyone. And it's a bummer that we might only get to see it for these 3 games. I mean, for Dante's season is unfortunately over, and his next season will be greatly affected. And there's a greater than 0 chance that Anthony Edwards' season is over as well. So just the ultimate bittersweet night. But I really think it was instructive of where would the gut, the heart of this Timberwolves team and the lack of it for the Nuggets. It's from Denver's side, I think, assuming even if they win this series, I think, but it's especially if they lose this series, I think that roster and that coaching staff is in for a lot of change this offseason. David Adelman said after the game that he felt like his team competed hard. I would greatly disagree with that. The reporter from DNVR that asked the question disagreed with that assessment. And then I'll read out a tweet that I thought kind of encapsulated a really rough look night for Jokic. Jokic has been a hothead, dirty player who lashes out and throws tantrums every time things don't go his way throughout his entire career. And there's always been an excuse for it by the dork-ass podcasters. Well, I'm not one of the, I'll take on the dork-ass podcaster mantle. But I won't use the excuses because I agree with that full-heartedly, that you can see it in this series as the series has gone on, as the Nuggets' chances to win the series has gone down, the flopping has increased, the complaining to the officiating has increased, all of that from Jokic. He's just lashing out. And it's unbecoming of a guy that's one of the greatest players in NBA history. He's a 3-time MVP, a 1-time champion. The number of players that have done that in the history of the NBA is very slim. He's one of the greatest players ever, but just an awful look for one of the best players in the NBA, maybe the best player in the NBA, that this is how he deals with adversity. And I don't know where they go from here, but let's focus on the Wolves a little bit longer because, again, with the injuries are going to say a lot about what this Timberwolves team is able to do moving forward. But I just think the core of the team, Anthony Edwards, Jaden McDaniels, Naz Reid, and Rudy Gobert, and even Julius Randle, Ayo Dosunmu, this game spoke volumes for them as a unit. And like I said, the fit is what it is. We'll talk about what trades may or may not happen in the offseason, but this was a banner night for the Timberwolves as a franchise, even if we look back at this and we point to this game as when the season ended for them in terms of a title or a Western Conference chase. There will be plenty of time to be sad about the injuries, about everything, and Finch got incredibly choked up talking about Dante DiVincenzo after the game, and there'll be plenty of time for that. And I guess if you want to do that now, there's nothing to disagree with you there, but I also think for now, let's all, myself included, let's all try to enjoy what was an incredible performance from the Timberwolves on Saturday night in Game 4. It's the peak. The crowd was just incredible. Awesome crowd. Gave you everything you'd want. Let's hope the series doesn't come back for Game 6, but if it does, the crowd will be ready to go for that game as well on Thursday night. and let's try to enjoy it, because that's as good that night. Aside, obviously, the bitter part of the bittersweet. That game was about as sweet as sports get, as fandom gets. That's as fun as it gets, shy of a title. And obviously, Minnesota sports fans on the men's side under 40, we're all chasing the dragon, right? We want to see a men's title in this city, because we haven't. And that we'll leave that aside almost, because you have to enjoy the journey. You have to enjoy each little step along the way. And I just think the Wolves, even with Ant only playing 18 minutes on a hobbled knee, and now unfortunately 2 hobbled knees, the Wolves showed you exactly what this organization is. And through just a really rough regular season, as Finch admits, they showed you what they're capable of. And you hope that they can, whether it's this playoffs, next one, that they can get a healthy run at this and really go for it again, because this team is special. It's going to be the golden age of Timberwolves basketball, and I hope people enjoy it. I hope everyone got, like we all did, the scroll on social media after the game, looking at the Denver reactions, the home reactions. All of it was incredibly fun. But a lot of basketball still to be played. The Wolves will play at least 3 more basketball games at the very least. They won't, for those first 3, they won't have Anthony Edwards, but hopefully they can get him back. Hopefully it'll be a tight road for the Wolves to ride here, if they can make it past this series, make it further. But just an incredible night inside Target Center. I know I keep repeating that. A special night, and one that will not. I would say it's the second most memorable night inside Target Center, for a Timberwolves game. Obviously, Game 7 against Sacramento with KG's birthday. KG on the scorers table is number 1. This is number 2 in terms of memorable, I think. Best is with the injuries is obviously the wrong word. I'll go with memorable there. But yeah, we'll have more discussion on this podcast about this game up later to continue to, so I have a partner with me so that they can prevent me from the ramblings that I'm doing here. But thank you everyone for listening. Thank you everyone for reading my coverage. Thank you to all the Wolves fans out there, because Game 4 emotions ran high, obviously on both sides, and even you can still see me that the emotions are still there for me on an emotional night. We're more than 12 hours past that here on Sunday morning. Yeah, I'm curious to see where this team is going to go, where the rest of this playoffs go, and I'm excited to talk about more on this podcast coming up. So we'll have another episode for you guys here, potentially on Monday, but certainly around Game 5 as well. But thank you everyone for listening, and go Wolves.
Hey you!